Lyrics to go. You picked one other musical theater song that we could take a quick look at, and then I want to move on to some other topics. And this is from The Music Man.
Yeah.
Which is another show that I have never seen, but I know it. I know of it.
You will apparently have an opportunity to soon if you so desire. Is it? Wait,
is that
right? It's still coming into Broadway?
Is that the Hugh Jackman version?
Yeah.
He's a music man. He's a what? He's a music man, and he sells clarinets to the kids in the town with the big trombones and the rat-a-tat drums and the big brass bass, and the piccolo uniform too, with a shiny gold braid on the coat and a big red stripe. Well, I don't know much about this, but I do know you can't make a living selling big trombones. No, sir.
So you chose a song that barely has a rhyme in it.
Yes.
And it barely has a sung note in it. I think Stephen Sondheim called this like a proto-rap song or something. And yeah, it really is. So this is... You got trouble.
Trouble! Right here in River City. With a capital T, and that rhymes with P, and that stands for pool. We've surely got trouble. Right here in River City. Gotta figure out a way to keep the young ones moral after school.
Yeah, this was a show that I, gosh, in my formative years, kind of fell in love with. As far as like old school musical theater, it's just one of my favorites. Mm-hmm. It's really so strange when you look at it, though, that a number like You Got Trouble that is like rapped essentially, or like the way the barbershop quartet is used throughout that show. It's really got some quirky things about that show. Even though you think of it as like the ultimate, like just kind of like typical like Broadway show, right up there with Rodgers and Hammerstein and The Music Man.
No, but it's nothing like Rodgers and Hammerstein. I mean,
I know. It really isn't. It really isn't.
Yeah.
That particular song, I will say, what amazes me about it, not only, I guess, the boldness of like, yes, the rapped lyric, but the amazing like detail and specificity of that lyric. Like, I don't know what half the stuff that he talks about or references in that song, what it means, but the details sound so authentic and so right. And it's like they're etched in my brain regardless, even though I don't know what, like trying out Bebo, trying out Cubebs, trying out tailor-mades like cigarette fiends, They
were trying out Bevo, trying out Cubebs, trying out tailor-mades like cigarette fiends, and bragging all about how they're going to cover up a telltale breath with Sen one fine night.
Bragging I will cover up the telltale breath with Sen. I don't know what any of that
a big out-of-town Jasper in a black suit.
Pinchback suit, yeah.
Pinchback, yeah.
Out-of-town Jasper, Next thing you know, playing for money in a pinchback suit, listen to some big out-of-town Jasper, hearing him tell about horse race gambling, not a wholesome trotting race, but a race where they sat down right on the horse. Like, like the specificity of like, oh, he knows that people in this like little town of Iowa don't approve of like horse racing where they sit on the horse, but they would approve of a wholesome trotting race. It's like so incredibly specific, and you just feel like everything about it. Like,
where they walk beside the horse, trotting the horse along.
I don't even know what not a wholesome trotting race. Like maybe that's the one where they're in the little cart, the little shay or something.
Yeah, maybe.
But as opposed to one where they sit on the horse. Yeah, and then like to see some.
I took a horse from my first canter a few weeks ago.
Wait, sorry.
Some Mexican gauchos put me on a horse a few weeks ago and showed me how to like. They like basically were like, okay, the horse is going to canter now. It's going to be a light canter, and I'm like, terrifying? What's that? Alive. It was awesome. It was scary at first, but we went through a river.
This trip to national parks and out west that I'm going to once again have to go horseback riding, because it is one of my fears, actually, possibly because of Cole Porter and what happened there.
What happened there? Tell me the story.
He was crushed by a horse and spent the later years of his life like unable to walk and in tremendous pain, I guess. He like fell and the horse fell on him, and horses scare me a little bit because they're so big and you don't know what they're going to do. Not really.
They're large. Yeah. Well, one of the things, what makes this song tick, is and this is another musical theater law that is unbreakable, I think. It's the dramatic subtext. Like the song itself is cute and fun, but why you want to listen to it is you're watching a sales pitch and you know he's got an angle and you know he's playing them like a trombone, so to speak.
76 trombones led the big parade with 110 cornets close at hand.
And he's trying to sell them what, a brass band?
Yeah, he sells bands. So, and it's going to solve the morality problem in their town now.
And that's his angle. Exactly. It's not that he's really a moral Puritan, far from it.
Yeah, and it's such a strange but persuasive argument that he makes in the course of the song, filled with all this like fast talking, amazing detail, and something about like, well, it scans like a dream. Like the rhythm of the words is just so fun. It's just chock full of all these like great like jangling like spondies, and like the rhythms of his patter is amazing.
Quick technical interlude, because Pete used a piece of lyrical jargon that I think is worth defining. He talked about spondies. So what is a spondee? Well, it's a kind of metric foot. And if that sounds like a contradiction in terms, we're not referring to the metric system or, the imperial measurement system. Metric referring to meter, as in the rhythm of poetry or lyrics. And a foot is sort of a unit. And so the most well-known metric foot type would be an iamb. And if you've ever studied Shakespeare, you've heard of iambic pentameter. To be or not to be, that is the question. Those are 5 iambs in a row, and iamb being 2 syllables where the stress is on the second syllable. Da-da, da-da, da-da. At the end of that, actually, there's a trochee. That is the question. Question is a trochee because it's 2 syllables where the stress is on the first syllable. So if I was going to sort of take examples from the world of fruit and nuts, pecan, as in the southern pronunciation, is an iamb, and apple is a trochee, right? Da-da, da-da. Well, so what is a spondee? Because that's what Pete's talking about. A spondee is 2 syllables where the weight is equal on both. So the fruit analog would be grapefruit. You don't say grapefruit unless you're these guys. And you don't say grapefruit. You say grapefruit. A lot of compound words are spondaic. And so what Pete's referring to in this lyric, we've already seen some of them, talking about bevo, talking about cubebs. There's a lot of spondees throughout this lyric, and it makes for a nice da-ga-dun-dun-dun, 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 which, if you think about it, has a kind of snare drum feel to it. So it's kind of a synecdoche for the thing he's talking about. I think that's the correct use of the word synecdoche.
Wrong! And then at some point I actually realized that it's more patterned than I thought. Underneath his whole rapped section, there is a musical form going on with chord progressions. And at one point I sat down like, what is happening here? It's actually an A-B-A-C song form that plays under every single one of his like rapped sections. And then there's the chorus, "You Got Trouble," which is a refrain. But the verse, so to speak, is actually like an A-B-A-C form that the music, and I think subliminally that kind of like holds it together in your ear. These chord progressions that are moving along underneath him give it more shape.
Well, it probably held it together in the writer's mind as well, because there's sort of a,
like, how long should I do these sections? Yeah,
exactly. And like, where does it crest, and where does it peak? And of course, he's always shooting for that great, the key word he's always reminding them of is pool.
In a table, pockets that mark the difference between a gentleman and a bum, with a capital B, and that rhymes with P, and that stands for pool.
Yeah, and I guess, I know very little about rap, so I show my ignorance here, but I feel like
I know very little about pool,
where they'll like have a set chord progression taken from something or from somewhere, and the length of that particular progression, verse or whatever, is a verse of the rap that it goes on top of that. Is that true? And then the hook comes around again. Yeah.
Usually you're dealing with a loop that doesn't extend more than 2 to 4 bars. But what that means is that that when you break that rule, it can be really exciting. Like one song, tomorrow I'm going to be doing a live stream about an album by a Long Island group called De La Soul. It happened. It was a lot of fun. And if you want to watch it, there's a link below. Their album Stakes is High is 25 years old. Like last week, it came out 25 years ago. And the title track, the beat is by a Detroit producer called Jay Dilla. And it's a sample from, who is it? Some great jazz artist, but it's 6 bars long. Now, actually, that's not quite correct. In the original, it doesn't quite reach 6 beats. Now, 6 divided into 2 would be 12. So let's start there. Ahmad Jamal's Swahili Land, which is the song that is sampled, it's actually, at least this section of it, in an 11 count. So it goes like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, Jay Dilla, who's the late great producer who made the beat for De La Soul's song, Stakes is High, in 1996, he took that and he realized that probably rapping over, a quick 11 count would be pretty challenging for all but the most experimental backpack rappers. So he regularizes it, stretches it out just slightly, making it 12 fast beats, which if you, put it in kind of a half beat hip hop tempo around, 90 beats per minute, whatever it is, it becomes 6. So it goes like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But the rappers, the MCs rap over it as if it's just 4. So the rhymes don't heed the fact that essentially you're dealing with like
thing doesn't repeat until 6.
It doesn't repeat, so it creates this very cool effect.
Instamatic focal point, bringing damage to your bar will be some brothers from the east with the beats that be thorough. Got the solar gravitation, so I'm bound to pull it. I gets down like brothers are found, ducking from bullets. Gun control means using both hands in my land, where it's all about the cautious living.
Yeah, no, sometime I need to educate myself on all that stuff. But anyway,
well, you can come to my PowerPoint for that, or subscribe to this channel.
Yes, for sure.
Opening numbers are so difficult. Every show I've written, the opening number is the one that after the whole thing's done and people are like, yeah, it's really working. Now about that opening number.
Because by then you've finished the show and you actually know what the show is. And now one hopes it's clearer how it actually needs to start. But of course you didn't know that when you wrote the opening number. And that is what you wrote first because you were trying to find what the show was. And so you wrote that, but it's not right anymore. Yeah.
And it's so consequential. Have you, what's the hardest opening you ever wrote?
I was just going to say, Honeymooners was definitely the most opening numbers. Steve has a file somewhere. Steve Weiner, who is the composer on Honeymooners, my collaborator, he has them all, I believe. It's not only like, it's the multiple iterations of a particular song idea, then throwing out that song idea completely and going with a completely new hook, title, concept, and multiple iterations of that. It's got to be upwards of like 50 opening numbers that we had for Honeymooners.
Wow.
Just because it was like always, I don't know, it was a hard show. It was a hard story to launch, and we looked at many angles. So,
well, this is another one of these rules that I've tried to break, and it's one of these rules I can't break. Like there's technical rules in lyric writing that I find myself able to like get around or whatever, if you're clever enough and you have a better idea. But in terms of like dramaturgical rules, the rule that the opening number, like the first 15 minutes is your handshake with the audience, as they taught us on my first day at NYU, like you're basically setting the audience up for what to expect, for how to process this. What kind of show is this? What are the parameters? What is how am I going to be listening? What am I looking for? And, the Trouble with Doug, the show that I wrote with Will Aronson, the first show I wrote with him. Yeah. We went through like 5 or 6 opening numbers. I'm not sure if we ever completely nailed it. And a shaky opening bespeaks a kind of, you're not really sure what the show is ultimately about.
Yeah, and one of the, I don't know, I sent you 2 different songs from the Hello Girls, but one of them was the opening number, Answer the Call, which was another, it wasn't as epic a journey as the Honeymooners in terms of opening numbers, but there was a completely different concept for the original Hello Girls opening that involved like showing the men going off to war in World War I, showing them having struggles with the phone system, and then the need to have, operators over there. It like tried to tell the entire backstory in this like long montage. Ultimately realized that it was not the right approach. Number one, like first and foremost, because it was like so much about what the men were doing. Like in trying to tell all this story, it was about like the men in the army and the problems they were having with the phones. And at a certain point, we realized like the show is the Hello Girls. It's their story. Like just get to the part where they come in. And, during a workshop, it was one of those kind of under the gun type things where we're like, it's the wrong opening number. And we have these people for like another, 18 hours of rehearsal or whatever it was at this point. Let's try to write something completely different, and came in the next day with something very close to what it ended up being. And felt, very triumphant. And in terms of like, yes, this is how it's supposed to be with writing and rewriting and like finding it, cause I'm sometimes very dubious and skeptical about rewriting and feel that I just tinker with things and don't necessarily make them better or whatever. But that was like one case where I was like, yes, that's how it's supposed to work. I saw that there was a problem, and I like thought about like what it really needed to be. And I was actually able to put that on paper, and the show got better.
No, that is a good feeling. And it's a good feeling to, to try to come from the perspective, from the attitude of there's more where that came from. Okay, if this doesn't work, but at a certain point you start wondering, didn't the opening song to Fiddler on the Roof came about that way? Tradition, right? Like they had another opening number, they were trying it out of town, and the audience just like by minute 10 of the show just wasn't like the rest of the show wasn't working.
Our original opening number for the show that Jerry and I and Joe Stein talked about was built around a very important Jewish custom, the celebration of the Sabbath. Mama, mama, you mustn't get so nervous.
Mama, mama, for heaven's sakes, relax.
Relax. So who can relax while there's so much to be done? Keeping one eye on the soup and the other on the sun.
Mama, mama, don't be nervous.
Mama will be ready long before the sun has set. We've never missed a Sabbath yet. There's noodles to make and chicken to be plucked and liver to be chopped and challah to be baked. Race with the sun so at the proper time the candles can be lit and blessed. There's noodles to make and chicken to be plucked and liver to be chopped and challah to be baked. Race with the sun so at the proper time the candles can be lit and blessed, etc.
There was some show doctor sage who came in and said, like, the problem is your opening number, you got to write a different one. And this very similar story is told about a funny thing happened on the way to the Forum, right? Do you know that one?
Yes.
Where Love is in the Air was the original opening number, which is like a lovely little charm song. Love is in the air. Dun, dun, dun. And a similar thing, it wasn't working. People weren't laughing at the show. Show wasn't funny. Again, some guru comes in. Could be the same guy. I don't know. We should check this.
Yes, in both cases, it was Jerome Robbins. But of course, Pete and I knew that all along.
And then dub it in afterwards, like we knew all along. And said, like, you have to have an opening number that tells the audience like what they're in for tonight. And that was
tonight.
Something appealing, something appalling, something for everyone. A comedy tonight.
Just for time's sake, why don't we look at one more of yours?
Yeah, sure.
And how about the duration? Want to do that one?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
From the Hello Girls.
Have we gone too far? Have we gone too fast? Given where we are, didn't think we'd last the night. But now we're in it, every hour, every minute, knowing this is the fight, this is the fight. You're in the fight, you're in the fight of your life.
It actually takes the women, the show is about the first women to serve in the U.S. Army. They were bilingual telephone operators during the First World War. And we follow a particular group of them that actually did serve on like the front lines essentially, and were part of the Meuse Argonne campaign. That was the decisive campaign at the end of the war. But a lot of the progress of the story and the plot in Hello Girls is that it took the women a long time to get to the front. even after they'd like jumped through all the hoops and gotten into the army and were, you know, they were stationed like far away from the fighting at first. And the men in charge did not want to put them anywhere near the action, but they really were the best at the job, and, you know, eventually, you know, pled their case and got to be where they could be the most useful, which is like in the thick of the battle, like near the front lines. And that song, The Duration, of course, is the sequence where they actually kind of get to go into their first like real battle, and they're in the thick of it. And yeah.
Right. So they're singing and the men are singing.
Yeah.
This is an action song. I mean, and I just listening to it, I've never seen the show, but I really felt like I was in it. But now we're in it. And I was very interested about the way the lyric interacts with the music, because the music is super groovy. Like a lot of cool rhythmic things happening that feel deliberate. Like I know you wrote the music and the lyrics, but if I was listening to this and it was like a composer and a lyricist, I'd be like, oh, the composer had this idea. And then said to the lyricist. So like things like, it's these little afterthoughts. So it's
the isn't it?
Where the isn't it and aren't they until it comes.
One day this rain is gonna let up, isn't it? One day we'll see the sun again. Until we do, one way or another, we will find the will to get up again, do it again. Stay in the fight. This is the fight of your life.
How did those little flourishes come about? Because they're so distinctive, and they're very effective dramatically. They convey the mood and the tension.
I wish I remembered actually when you said like, oh, this was a music first thing, clearly because of this little musical flourish.
I don't know. I'm just guessing.
And I'm like, was it? It very well may have been, because at that point I was kind of like, I'd gotten to a point in the song where I was like, now it needs to like open up into a big, like, we need to rock out, you know? And I feel like maybe I may have been going on my, we're going to have some like big slamming notes up front so that we can really hear that full chorus power. The one day, then is like, but then it needs a little rhythmic character or something, right?
Right.
So that's where the right. Isn't it? Run. And like, I'm very, very rhythm oriented as a lyricist, like, because to me, even when I collaborate, and Steve Weiner with the Honeymooners, I would often go music first. So he'd make those choices for me. But when I wrote first, like, I would pretty much be setting rhythms in my head. I'd be like, you know, I would know how that lyric is supposed to scan, because to me, like, they have to fit together really well. And assuming that they do, you're dictating to a large extent those rhythms with the words you choose. Now, in the case of if this was music first, and that's what led me to is like, what's going to sit on that little da-da-da? And I was like, well, what could go there? I've said the whole sentence. Maybe it's just an afterthought, like, isn't it? Or something. If it did happen that way, I certainly then took that and said like, oh, because it's all kind of about like the doubt and like, are we going to make it through this? You know, like it was not for nothing that I got to that phrase because then that informed the rest of the lyric as it got finished about like, it's just like, you know, gritting your teeth and hanging in there and hoping that you make it through.
Well, so the song is called The Duration. And so these lines, you know, one day we'll see the sun again. One day we'll see the sun again. Until we do, there's this, you hedge your dreams. You're like, we have to keep that hope. But meanwhile, we're bounded by what's between now and then. And we have to deal with what's right in front of us.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, I'm sure that Till We Do was filled in later after I had already committed to that musical thing. I was like, okay. Well, it's got to do that da-da-da again. Because that's the one I was like, that's a tighter squeeze. That feels a little less organic than, isn't it? You know?
I loved it. It's always exciting.
The song is called The Duration. It was almost called like The Fight of Your Life. And I'm so glad that it's not, I have to say. Like,
Duration's more interesting.
The very square lyricist in me is like, well, where's your title? What's the phrase that gets repeated? And is that the, you know, what does it cadence on? What's the end of the form? And it's like, this is the fight, you know, still in the fight of your life. It comes to that phrase every time. I think it only literally says the phrase, the duration, once in the whole lyric, man your station because you're in for the duration. But the duration is the much better title in my book because it's kind of a, that came from the research somewhere. There was some document when the women got sent to the front, like with their assignment, is like it's specified your assignment will be for the duration, which is understood to be like the rest of the war.
Wow.
So I just really
line.
like that. Like, oh, that sounds really Army. That's Army speak. So I was like, I'm going to put that in the.
I really respect that. Just, knowing what your title is, but not feeling obligated to like make that the hook or something. You just put that in there. You make it at the center of it, at the heart of it, but not being a slave to. Okay, now I need to like rhyme it with a million different things. For the
like
nation, we're gonna do the duration.
It would have been so much worse. Absolutely. No, it was always going to be in there just because I thought it was a cool phrase. And then at some point later, I realized, oh, that should be the title. Just because it really is about like, not only is the song kind of a montage that's supposed to be like the whole Meuse Argonne long battle, which was over many days. So it's about the duration of that, but it's also about endurance and about just the kind of, tenaciousness that, and like the physical rigor of like the job that these women had to do, is about like, could they last?
Is this song technically an extended musical sequence? One of these songs that basically is meant to cover a whole expanse of time. So it's kind of like an action montage song.
Yeah, it is that. Like in the staging of it, you keep seeing the women like come and go from their shifts. So we're supposed to understand that like time is passing and the men are off there fighting and the women are at the switchboards, and it is like a montage. Absolutely.
Yeah, cool. It's a lot of fun. And these action songs, I've written a few of them with Will, and music first is often a good way to do it because it's about the energy, it's about the mood, it's about the feeling.
She thinks she's got a speech, but we're gonna one-up her. No holy with a broomstick, we'll eat our mom for supper. It won't be pretty, it won't be tidy, but she's gotta go, it's a must. And thanks to Gunter, and thanks to Heidi, soon that witch will bite the dust. Gotta make it good.
The words are in some ways percussion. There's not a lot of complicated information to get across. You've got imagery in here, the feeble gray of washed out days, the heavy clouds that hide the sun, shell fire at nights, kind of like a Northern Lights. Like you got beautiful images, but like this song is a mood, and this song is an energy, and this song is an attitude.
It's like a mood that I felt a lot during the early days of the pandemic, especially when we were all like hunkered down and like kind of riding this thing out. It has that like bunker. It has that bunker mentality vibe to it. Absolutely.
One last little compliment. The thing again, these little technical things tickle me when someone pays this level of attention, and I wonder if sometimes I listen to lyrics the wrong way because like I could just zoom out and just take in the vibe or the mood or the feeling, but I'm like, okay, now where's like it's the deftness with which it's pulled off pulls me in and gets me to listen. It makes it worth my while to listen. Like I always want to be rewarded for my close attention, and you do that all the time. And one of the places where you do that is this surprising placement of rhymes. So a lot of people will only place their rhymes at the end of lines, but you say, have we gone too far? Have we gone too fast? Given where we are, didn't think we'd last the night out. So,
the phrase,
now, that's not exactly an internal rhyme. That's like an ingrown rhyme. Like you're taking the end rhyme and you pull it in and you extend the line so that every time you hear it, it's like you hit the rhyme and then you go further. It's like a springboard. I love that effect.
And I don't even know if it follows the rules, but it felt intuitively right to my ear. Like, yeah, have we gone too fast? Didn't think we'd last. So it's the same number of syllables to where the rhyme does happen, but then it goes on beyond it.
That's always.
I don't know. Thank you.
That's always. That's always exciting. I think the best lyric writers know how to vary up their line lengths, because it's very easy to like da 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 da. But especially in a song like this where there's so much going on, the kinetic.
The song was one where the music did probably drive it more to good effect, because I think I do often write lyric first, and when I do, I kind of fall back on or I tend to fall back on very square forms because I'm like, well, I don't know how the music will go, but I know that if I write like a quatrain here and a viva and a B section, I know that I'll be able to set it, you know, whereas this, I kind of had the music in my ear, I think, from the start, and was kind of more intuitively to kind of be like, yeah, I don't know if it was music first, because with me, it's always a lot of back and forth, but nevertheless, music was driving it a lot more here in a good way. So
yeah, that back and forth is important. Like when I write a lyric first, I'm always hoping that the composer side of me can come back and negotiate with the lyric side and be like, okay, I want to make this third line half the length. I want to change the rhyme scheme up a little bit. Like I like your basic idea, but then, and so that it's a bit of a daisy chain, like that, so that I don't let one side dominate, so that it feels like a collaboration, as if I was working with somebody else. And that's hard.
Who has a cool idea? The composer side's like, wait, I got something. They're like, thank God, because I got nothing. Yeah.
That's great. So Pete, we've covered a lot. It's been great to catch up with you again. I don't think I've seen you in years, like not in person at least. See you online a lot.
Nobody's seen anybody. That's part of the course.
Right, exactly. But no, it was great to get a chance to talk to you and to re-encounter some of your work and to re-encounter these great musical theater songs that you chose from the canon, and to discuss. It's been a long time since I, had a genuine nerd out sit down with a fellow musical theater lyricist.
Don't get me started talking about lyrics, because I will.
But I used to do this all the time. This used to be my life when I lived in New York, and on this channel, I'm always talking about lyrics. And it's easy for me to forget. Number one, I am a lyricist. And number two, I have all these amazing colleagues who are extremely skilled that I can, chew the fat with and talk about it. So it's been a real pleasure to get a chance to do that with you. So thank you for being my guest on Lyrics to Go. And I hope you'll come back.
Well, thank you so much for being such an excellent host. You made it very easy and comfortable to, talk about my favorite subject. I guess that was bound to be something that I would feel good talking about. But no, I feel very, validated and honored to be here.
Beautiful. That's the idea. Have a great road trip and give my love to Cara.
Thank you.
Lyrics to Go.